Hey everyone. Well, we finally got the crossover that everyone's been waiting for. Family Guy meeting up with the Simpsons. In this Family Guy episode, we have that Simpsons Guy. I gotta say, I thought it was funny. It was a funny episode. But I am a bit disappointed by it because it didn't really reach its true potential. That's the thing though, about the runtime. Even though it's an hour long, but you have to count in the commercial breaks and stuff, so at max it's probably 45 minutes. So you're going to have a 45-minute long episode, and because it's The Simpsons and Family Guy, that actually sounds very, very long, especially since you only watch these in 30-minute episodes with the commercial breaks, so it's like 20 minutes. So yeah, it's going to feel very long to people, and probably people are going to like that or hate that. But to me, I kind of felt like this concept should have been like that Simpsons movie, which was like 90 minutes, plus the credits, so I was kind of surprised that this was not in theaters, this kind of concept, because I think people would actually pay to see this in theaters. So I'm just glad that people are watching it on TV for free. I mean, remember that joke from the beginning of the Simpsons movie where Homer Simpson is like, wait, why am I watching something in theaters when I could watch it on TV for free? I'm glad you did that, Fox. At least we get to see this for free. Yes, the Griffin family meets up with the Simpsons family in Springfield, but the first 10 minutes of this episode didn't really go anywhere. I mean, it was amusing, there were some funny jokes, but it didn't really do much because you are not in the Springfield yet. I mean, you finally get to Springfield after 10 minutes. So for a lot of people that want to see Family Guy with The Simpsons, the first 10 minutes is spent in Quahog and there's not much to do. So you're wondering, wow, why did they take so long to set this up? So when they finally meet up, you wish that the first 10 minutes had been cut or removed with something to give the Simpsons family more time with the Griffin family, because that's what everyone wants. I'm going to spoil a lot about this episode, so if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, I'm going to spoil it. But if you saw the 4-minute sneak peek of this episode, you're already spoiled by the story, because that is the whole story. I mean, the Griffin family got stuck and they go to Springfield, they meet up with the Simpsons, and then they have their shenanigans, they bond with each other, and then Homer and Peter Griffin have their own shenanigans, and then they disagree on something, and then they fight in the end, and that's it. That's the episode. 45 minutes of that. I haven't watched either episode in a while. I mean, Family Guy I watched recently, but that's like 6 months ago. The first 10 minutes has Peter Griffin being angry at a Dennis the Menace cartoon, so he decides to publish comics on his own by himself. And yeah, some of these comics, they're crude drawings, but they were kind of funny, they were. And every time they cut to them, I kind of chuckled. But yeah, Peter Griffin is getting success as being this cartoonist for the newspaper. He makes a very sexist drawing of a dude throwing his wife over the counter and saying, my dishwasher broke. So every woman in Quahog is pissed off about that. So he tries to fix it by removing the dishwasher comment and putting my vacuum cleaner broke, and that gets all women even more pissed. And they use real footage of riots and stuff. So yeah, even though I'm laughing about that now, but when you watch it, yes, it was amusing, but at the same time, in the back of your head, you're like, get on with it! Go show the Simpsons or something like that! Jesus Christ, what's taking so damn long? All the women want to kill Peter, so Peter decides to take his family and just leave Quahog, going anywhere. No, they didn't even have a destination, they just want to get out of there. So then after the commercial break, then you see Peter Griffin driving with his family, and they just woke up. All of them woke up, including Peter, who was the driver. I love that joke. And Lois was like, oh, Peter, where are we? And Peter's like, I just woke up too. He tied the steering wheel to his belt. So they stopped at a rest stop, and then they used the bathroom, and then when they came out, they realized that the car just got stolen. So they're stuck, and they don't know where they are. Of course, they walk up to the sign, and it says Springfield, and then the Simpsons music plays, and it was glorious, and then you see the whole town of Springfield with the Family Guy cast members in it, and this is one of my most favorite shots in the entire episode. I really love this. This was great. And then it cuts to them as talking about Springfield, and they want to know which state it's in. And Brian's like, I don't think we're allowed to tell you anybody in this episode. So you see the Griffins walking down Springfield, and yes, another part I like about this episode, it's great, but I wanted them to interact more with the town of Springfield. But they do go to the Quickie Mart, they meet Apu, and then Peter and the family are very, very hungry. Right before this, actually, there was a joke about Chris getting so hungry, and Peter requesting Lois to take out her boobs so she could feed the man. And Chris is like, yes, listen to the man. And Brian's like, yeah, listen to the man, Lois. I'm like, wow, this is weird. Peter, Griffin, and the family go over to the donuts, and they're like, ooh, whoa, donuts, ooh, ah. And I love Stewie's reaction. He's like, seriously, have you not seen a donut before, you fuckers? But the problem is that for some reason they left all their money in the car? You mean including Lois? Lois is usually the smart one in the family, but they left all their money in the car? What? Anyway, so they left all their money in the car, and they asked Apu to just give them free donuts for the meantime, and he's like, no thank you, come again. And then you hear a mysterious voice, a very familiar voice, and he says, I'll pay for those donuts. And then from the shadows, you see a guy that does not look like Homer Simpson at all. I was like, wait, what the hell? That's not Homer. And he sounds exactly like Homer. He looks almost like Homer, except that he has red hair and his face looks different. And he's like, no, I didn't say that. And then he goes back to the shadows. And then it cuts to another part of the store that has a shadow. And then Homer Simpson arrives. And everyone's like, woo, Homer Simpson. And Stewie's like, seriously, what's up with this place? Why is there so many shadowy areas? And Homer agrees to pay for the donuts. And he gives this backstory about the donuts. He's like, I was like you once, not being able to afford donuts. So you know what I did, Apu? Tell him, Apu. He stole the donuts. I stole the donuts. So he bought a dozen donuts for Griffins, but takes out 4 and then takes out 2. So he's like, okay, so yeah, 12 donuts, 10 donuts, 8 donuts, 6 donuts, donuts. And then Peter Griffin says, donuts. Homer Simpson and Peter Griffin bond instantly, and it was just great to see this. It was awesome. So Peter and Homer go over to the police headquarters, and they meet up with Chief Wiggum, who honestly does not give a damn about the car theft because Peter Griffin never contributed to the donations and stuff. So Chief Wiggum puts it in the circular file cabinet, which he'll never ever check up, and then he uses the excuse to leave. I was like, Chief Wiggum, he's always hilarious. So the Griffin family stays over with the Simpsons family in their house, and then they meet up with the rest of the family. Bart got kicked out of camp for super gluing a counselor's butt cheeks together, and Marge is like, how did you get access to that? And Bart's like, I'm not the only one who got kicked out of camp. Stewie and Bart bonded instantly, and Meg and Lisa kind of bonded instantly. Meg has her sad story, of course, because she says she's not good at anything, and she's has an abusive parent, who is Peter, of course. And Lisa tells Meg to say, I matter! And Meg's like, I matter! And Peter's like, shut up, Meg, you don't matter! And Meg's like, And then they have dinner together, and then you see the dilemma that Brian has, because he usually eats at the family table in the Family Guy episodes, but this time, Marge just thinks that Brian's just a regular dog, so he has to go and eat in the kitchen with Santa's little helper. And Brian's talking with Santa's little helper, who's, doesn't know anything. He's just a dog. He's just eating his food and licking the food off the table, and Brian's commenting on that, and he's like, great, I have to be with this douchebag. So Homer helps out Peter by looking out for their car, and then you see these weird-ass shenanigans, like Homer saying that they should think like a car, so they drink gasoline out of a gas pump. And Homer said that he prepaid $40 already for this. I'm like, dude, really? You gotta think like a car? And then Peter's like, Homer, I don't think we're doing this right. So they look over and see a woman putting the gasoline pump into the gas tank, which is at the backside of the car. So Peter and Homer are like, oh crap, so they unzip their pants. And then you don't see them putting the gas pump in their asses, but of course you know where that's going. And then all of a sudden you see a weird cutaway gag of a porn shop in Germany. And then a guy asking, do you have the sex tape of Homer and Peter with the Chevron pump? And then the guy points over and you see the sex tape of Homer and Peter with the gas pump. And right after this, you have the scene where Peter has a great idea of doing a stolen car wash. Yes, if anybody stole a car, they could get a free car wash. And Homer's like, ooh, and if we find the guy, we get to charge him. So it's a success, of course, but they couldn't find their car. Every single thief you see in Springfield, every single thief you ever saw in the Simpsons episode appears with their stolen car, and then you see Peter Griffin and Homer in shorts. Then you know where this is gonna happen, because Peter's like, oh well, we promised these scumbags a show. So then the music starts playing and you hear cherry pie, sweet, sweet cherry pie. And then you see this very good animation of these two fat asses in tight shorts doing a car wash. Everyone's throwing up and everyone wants to leave, and you know these guys are extremely fat, so Peter Griffin's like humping the front of the car and it causes an airbag to explode, and Homer Simpson tried to climb over a car but it breaks. Oh man, it's not original, it's not, but it's very funny to see these two characters doing this anyway. In the meantime, you see Lisa and Meg, they finally found what Meg is very good at, but Lisa is extremely jealous because Meg is very good at playing the saxophone. Yes, even better than Lisa, and that pissed off Lisa so much that she just told Meg that, no, you're terrible at the saxophone, even though the two birds talking to each other outside saying, wow, she's actually better than Lisa. And then you see Stewie riding skateboards with Bart, and then he realizes that Bart keeps getting bullied by Nelson, so Stewie wants to do something with that. So this is a scene where you've seen out of Taken. So Stewie basically shot a dart at Nelson, which makes him sleep, and then he takes him to the torture chamber and forces Nelson to eat Stewie's shorts. I just love the contrast between The Simpsons and Family Guy, because Family Guy is pretty damn dark, seriously, especially compared to The Simpsons, because when you see Nelson in this torture chamber, all the lighting, everything's in shadows, everything's so dark and intense, the music is very dark and intense, and so Nelson's extremely terrified about this, and Stewie Griffin is at home with himself, he's insane. So yeah, that's what I love about this part, because it actually shows the contrast between The Simpsons and Family Guy. There was a joke early on when Bart and Stewie are doing the prank calls, and this is a joke I honestly don't like, even though I kind of chuckled at first, but after that I'm like, yeah, it shouldn't have been in there. It was not as funny as it should have been. It's a prank phone call to Moe's Tavern that Bart always does, so Bart says that, hey, I'm looking for a guy named Leaky Bum, and Moe's like, hey, is there a leaky bum? Has anyone seen my leaky bum? Oh, check all the stools. Is there a leaky bum? So yeah, that part was funny. Then Stewie Griffin gets on the phone and he's like, hey Mo, your sister's being raped. I kind of chuckled because I did not expect that, even though I did see that part from the 4 minutes season sneak peek thing. But still, I thought it was going to add more to it, but no, it just cuts off right there, and I'm like, nah, that's not a really good shock humor, actually. You shouldn't have said that, Seth MacFarlane. That was actually kind of uncomfortable. So Homer and Peter finally have their last plan, purchase a giant magnet. What? Oh man, seriously, how do they afford this? They never explained this, because Peter Griffin even said that they left all their money in the car, and Homer doesn't really have a good job either, and Marge is a stay-at-home wife, and they have a nice house, but they were able to purchase a giant magnet? What? Anyway, so they bought a giant magnet, and they were about to set it up, but it turns out they need a giant electrical socket, and Homer didn't even think about this, so he's like, oh, we didn't get everything from the box. So Peter's like, okay, let's get this garbage off the streets. Then he got run over by his own car, and it shows that elderly man with the glasses, and he's like, oh, I thought this car was my parents. Oh. So, and then he runs off, and everyone's like, wow, what are the odds of us finding the car? And Peter's like, how many curious old men are there in this town anyway? And then Abe Simpson runs Peter Griffin over with the car. And Peter Griffin is a bloody mess, seriously, what the hell? And after this, Peter and Homer celebrated, and they were drinking beer, and then we have the conflict. Turns out that Pawtucket Ale, the brewery that Peter works for, is in fact a ripoff of Duff. Honestly, it's the exact copy of Duff beer. Seriously, because Moe takes off the sticker and it turns out to be Duff beer, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. And Homer's pissed off about this, and then you see the one of the co-founders of Duff beer suing Peter Griffin on the spot, and Peter's like, no! And then you have the court case where you see a lot of the Family Guy cast members and a lot of the Simpsons cast members, and how much similar they are, because you see Consuela with a Mexican bee, and you see Mayor West with Mayor Quimby. I love this part. Adam West is back as Mayor West, and he asks Mayor Quimby if he smokes pot, and I love that. And you see my favorite cameo in this one, James Woods, playing as himself from two different shows. James Woods from Family Guy and James Woods from Simpsons. I thought this was brilliant. And then you see another cameo of Fred Flintstone as the judge. And then he decides that Duff Beer wins the case, and Peter Griffin and Paul Tuckett Beer Company is going to lose their jobs and all that. So everyone's like, oh no, oh no, oh no! They expected the Kool-Aid Man to bust through the walls, but he didn't come. Then you hear a cell phone ring, and then Peter answers it, and the Kool-Aid Man's like, sorry man, I'm in the wrong Springfield. That was my most favorite joke in the entire episode. Seriously, I love that. I didn't expect that, honestly. I thought that was great. So Peter Griffin is really pissed off towards Homer, and Homer really regrets everything, and the families are saying their goodbyes. Stewie wants to be really good friends with Bart, but Bart is really freaked out by Stewie's kidnapping all his enemies, including Nelson, Jimbo, Principal Skinner, and Apu. But he didn't want to capture Apu because he only wanted to capture Apu because he just wanted to say, I caught Apu. Lisa gives Meg her saxophone, and she really likes Meg, but Peter just throws away the saxophone because there's no more room for luggage. What an ass. And Brian and Chris lost Santa's Little Helper the entire time, and there was this very funny chase scene with Santa's Little Helper, but they couldn't find him. And then Brian was going to tell Marge that he lost Santa's Little Helper, but Santa's Little Helper finally showed up, and Marge was like, that's what you tried to tell me all this time, and then they tried to run along. And then Homer wants to apologize to Peter Griffin, but Peter Griffin was really pissed off, and then he says that the Simpsons suck, so that starts off the epic fight between Homer Simpson and Peter Griffin. Homer beats the living shit out of Peter Griffin, and that makes Peter Griffin want to beat the shit out of Homer Simpson, and this fight was really a lot of fun. It was. And yeah, it was very long too. It was like the last 10 minutes of the episode, really. So, yeah, you see a lot of bloody carnage, a lot of bloody violence, and this is taking place in Springfield, and it was weird seeing all this, because, yes, blood and violence is not a new concept to The Simpsons, because it's done like that throughout every single Halloween episode, but since this is a normal episode, and all the violence and chaos and destruction, Jesus Christ, I didn't expect to see this in The Simpsons episode. At first, I was kind of cringing, but at the same time, I kind of liked it because Homer Simpson is such a badass. Seriously, he was awesome as a fighter. He kicked the shit out of Peter Griffin, but they were both even anyway. And I love this part where they were in the bus and Homer's like, wait, back off, man. There's a kid in the back. And you see Ralph saying, I'm in danger! And then he flies, and yeah, everyone gets the shit kicked out of them, and a lot of people died in Springfield. Seriously, all the carnage, all the destruction. They blew up the nuclear power plant. There was a huge explosion. Everyone's wiped out or naked. And Homer Simpson and Peter Griffin became like Superman, basically. They're green Superman. They were giant. They're muscular. They beat the living shit out of themselves. And every time they punch each other at the same time, it causes a nuclear blast, which destroys everything. They smash through buildings. Seriously, it was like watching Dragon Ball Z or Man of Steel. That kind of fight. So yeah, they go all the way up into space, and they meet up with Kang and the other alien, and they blew up the ship. And there was a cameo from the alien from American American Dad, and he's like, "Thank you for having me, bye!" So they blew up the spaceship, and then they go down to Springfield Gorge, and then they spin like a top and stuff, and then they fly off, and Peter's like, "Oh, we're gonna make it," and Homer's like, "No, we won't, trust me." Then they fall all the way to the bottom, and they are still fighting and fighting and fighting and beating the living shit out of each other, and then you see this very awesome slow-mo final punch shot where they punched each other in the face at the same time. Peter Griffin loses his teeth, and then his face looks like Agent Smith's face from the final punch of The Matrix Revolutions, and Homer gets an eye almost coming out of his eye socket and all his teeth and stuff, so yeah, that was pretty brutal. And then it seems like Homer Simpson almost won the fight, but the spaceship crashed down onto him, and Peter Griffin just walked away, you know, like every single end of chicken fight. And then it cuts to Homer Simpson, bloody as hell. Seriously, I thought he was decapitated or chopped in half or something like that. So then you see the dramatic close-up zoom-in shot of the dun 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 dun, and Homer Simpson's eyes light up and stuff. But it turns out he was fine. He just walks off after that. I'm like, really? What's with all that blood? They're not explaining that. And Peter Griffin is still right there, and they're like, you know what? Even though I'm Family Guy and you're Simpsons, and we can never be together, don't worry. We'll still be best friends, you know that? And Homer's like, okay, no problem. As long as we don't see each other for 30 minutes, we have a 30-minute time gap. And they walk off into the sunset together as pals. And then you see comic book guys saying what everyone's thinking. Worst chicken fight ever. So the Griffin family finally goes to Quahog, and the women are not angry at Peter anymore, and Stewie is really heartbroken after his friendship breakup with Bart, so he said that he's a lone wolf he doesn't feel sad about, but he goes up into his room and writes on a chalkboard like Bart always does at the beginning of each episode in the intro section of each episode of The Simpsons, where Bart writes on the chalkboard and he's like, I will forget about Bart, and Stewie Griffin was crying and stuff, and that was the ending of That Simpsons Guy. So, this episode, like I said, was funny, but it wasn't as funny as it should be, or it didn't reach its full potential. I honestly wanted more with these characters. When they finally showed the court scene, and they show all these Family Guy and Simpsons characters interacting with each other, well, they didn't really interact with each other, but they're just sitting next to each other. You wanted more interactions with that, you know? So, yeah, I kind of felt like if this was another 30 minutes, it would probably might be better, but at the same time it'd probably be too long, because a lot of people complained about that for the Simpsons movie, that it was 30 minutes too long, it felt like it, but almost everyone enjoyed it anyway. But like I said, out of all the Seth MacFarlane things I've seen this year, it is better than A Million Ways to Die in the West. And for the Simpsons episode, this is one of the funniest Simpsons episodes I've seen in a while. But I still say that the Simpsons movie is mostly better written than this, actually. I mean, a lot of the jokes were funny, but some of them do not work at all. Some of them were unnecessary. And the first 10 minutes of this episode, especially about the women being mad at Peter, should have been cut. It should have been replaced with more interactions with the Simpsons characters. Actually, I think, even though I say 30 minutes more would have been better, I think those 10 minutes just on the Simpsons characters interacting with the Family Guy characters, that would have been better. Just 10 more minutes of that, you know? More shenanigans, more hijinks, more jokes with them. I would have preferred that over the Griffin family being in Quahog and Peter Griffin being a comic artist and stuff. I didn't really care for that much. Just start the episode off with the Griffin family going on a trip, and they just woke up, and then you have that funny joke about Peter Griffin just waking up too, you know? So that would have been so much better. So guys, if you watched the episode, write down in the comments below, how do you feel about the episode? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think this is one of the best episodes of The Simpsons or Family Guy in a while or not? Let me know. And which part of this episode that you really like the best? Like I said, the fight scene was great, and I think, like I said, my most favorite joke has to be with the Kool-Aid Man. I thought that was clever. So, if you like this video, please click the like button. If you'd like to subscribe, there's an annotation here for subscribing. So until next time, guys, see you later.